Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholes. This week we're reading 3 stories from Carl Sandburg's Rutabaga Stories, and these all have to do with the gold buckskin whincher. Last story, we met Blixie Bimmer and her adventure with the whincher and all of the men with X's in their names who she fell head over heels in love with. At the end of the story, she lost the whincher in a cistern. And now, we're going to find out exactly how Jason Squiff gets his hands on the whincher and what it does to him. In the story of Jason Squiff and why he had a popcorn hat, popcorn mittens, and popcorn shoes. Jason Squiff was a cistern cleaner. He had greenish-yellowish hair. If you looked down into a cistern when he was lifting buckets of slush and mud, you could tell where he was. You could pick him out down in the dark cistern by the lights of his greenish-yellowish hair. Sometimes, the buckets of slush and mud tipped over and ran down on the top of his head. This covered his greenish-yellowish hair, and then it was hard to tell where he was, and it was not easy to pick him out down in the dark where he was cleaning the cistern. One day, Jason Squiff came to the Bimmer house and knocked on the door. "Do I understand?" he said, speaking to Mrs. Bimmer, Blixie Bimmer's mother. "Do I understand you sent for me to clean the cistern in your backyard?" "You understand exactly such," said Mrs. Bimmer. "And you are welcome as the flowers that bloom in the spring. Tra-la-la." "Then I will go to work and clean the cistern. Tra-la-la," he answered, speaking to Mrs. Bimmer. "I'm the guy. Tra-la-la," he said further, running his excellent fingers through his greenish-yellowish hair, which was shining brightly. He began cleaning the cistern. Blixie Bimmer came out in the backyard. She looked down in the cistern. It was all dark. It looked like nothing but all dark down there. By and by she saw something greenish-yellowish. She watched it. Soon she saw it was Jason Squiff's head and hair. And then she knew the cistern was being cleaned and Jason Squiff was on the job. So she sang tra-la-la and went back into the house and told her mother Jason Squiff was on the job. The last bucketful of slush and mud came at last for Jason Squiff. He squinted at the bottom. Something was shining. He reached his fingers down through the slush and mud and took out what was shining. It was the gold buckskin whincher Blixie Bimmer lost from the gold chain around her neck the week before when she was looking down into the cistern to see what she could see. It was exactly the same gold buckskin whincher, shining and glittering like a sign of happiness. "It's luck," said Jason Squiff, wiping his fingers on his greenish-yellowish hair. Then he put the gold buckskin whincher in his vest pocket and spoke to himself again. "It's luck." A little after 6 o'clock that night, Jason Squiff stepped into his house and home and said hello to his wife and daughters, and they all began to laugh. Their laughter was a ticklish laughter. "Something funny's happening?" he said. "And you are it." They all laughed at him again with ticklish laughter. Then they showed him. His hat was popcorn, his mittens popcorn, and his shoes popcorn. He didn't know the gold buckskin whincher had a power and was working all the time. He didn't know the whincher in his vest pocket was saying, "You have a letter Q in your name, and because you have the pleasure and happiness of having a Q in your name, you must have a popcorn hat, popcorn mittens, and popcorn shoes." The next morning he put on another hat, another pair of mittens, and another pair of shoes. And the minute he put them on, they changed to popcorn. So he tried on all his hats, mittens, and shoes, and they always changed to popcorn the minute he had them on. He went downtown to the stores. He bought a new hat, new mittens, and new shoes, and the minute he had them on, they changed to popcorn. So he decided he would go to work and clean cisterns with his popcorn hat, popcorn mittens, and popcorn shoes on. The people of the village of Cream Puffs enjoyed watching him walk up the street, going to clean cisterns. People 5 and 6 blocks away could see him coming and going with his popcorn hat, popcorn mittens, and popcorn shoes. When he was down in a cistern, the children enjoyed looking down into the cistern to see him work. When none of the slush and mud fell on his hat and mittens, he was easy to find. The light of the shining popcorn lit up the whole inside of the cistern. Sometimes, of course, The white popcorn got full of black slush and black mud, and then, when Jason Squiff came up and walked home, he was not quite so dazzling to look at. It was a funny winter for Jason Squiff. "It's a crime, a dirty crime," he said to himself. "Now I can never be alone with my thoughts. Everybody looks at me when I go up the street. If I meet a funeral, even the pallbearers begin to laugh at my popcorn hat. If I meet people going to a wedding, they'll throw rice at me as if I'm the bride and groom all together. The horses try to eat my hat wherever I go. 3 hats I have fed to the horses this winter. And if I accidentally drop one of my mittens, the chickens eat it." Then Jason Squiff began to change. He became proud. "I always wanted a white, beautiful hat like this white popcorn hat," he said to himself. "And I always wanted white, beautiful mittens and white, beautiful shoes like these white popcorn mittens and shoes." When the boys yelled, "Snowman! Ya-di-da-di-da-di-da, snowman!" he just waved his hand to them with an upward gesture of his arm to show how proud he was of how he looked. "They all watch for me," he said to himself. "I am distinguished, am I not?" he asked himself. And he put his right hand into his left hand and shook hands with himself and said, "You certainly look fixed up." One day he decided to throw away his vest. In the vest pocket was the gold buckskin whincher, with the power working, the power saying, "You have a letter Q in your name, and because you have the pleasure and happiness of having a Q in your name, you must have a popcorn hat, popcorn mittens, and popcorn shoes." Yes, he threw away the vest. He forgot all about the gold buckskin whincher being in the vest. He just handed the vest to a ragman, and the ragman put the vest with the gold buckskin whincher in a bag on his back and walked away. After that, Jason Squiff was like other people. His hats would never change to popcorn, nor his mittens to popcorn, nor his shoes to popcorn. And when anybody looked down at him in a cistern cleaning the cistern, or when anybody saw him walking along the street, they knew him by his greenish-yellowish hair, which was always full of bright lights. And so, if you have a Q in your name, be careful if you ever come across a gold buckskin whincher. Remember, different whinchers have different powers. And that is the story of Jason Squiff and why he had a popcorn hat, popcorn mittens, and popcorn shoes. And this whincher is just, it's silly. And this is a hallmark of Sandberg's rutabaga stories. A lot of them are just silly. And again, this book was put together because, well, Sandberg felt that America didn't have enough of its own fairy tales, and he wanted to tell his children a story. And these are the stories that he came up with. This is Dan Scholes for the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget that if you enjoy the podcast, you can always head over to Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you listen and leave a rating or a review. I really appreciate it. As always, thank you so much for listening.